This is something that comes up a lot, and I'd like to thank YouTuber Jim Doug for giving me a chance to respond to the idea. I'm certainly not attacking Jim. This is a response to the concepts he brings up. I'm not going after his conclusions or anything of the sort. I just want to get that out of the way up front. He's just giving me a good excuse to examine the issue and point out where, I think, a lot of liberal atheists get it wrong. So, let's go take a look at the idea that somehow liberalism causes atheism, or that atheism causes liberalism, and why there seems to be such a correlation between the two.
There's a tendency that I've noticed in my personal life through various anecdotal experiences and things that I've noticed through different polls and different things like that, is that people who are non-religious or atheists or whatever tend to be more liberal, specifically on social issues. That's what I was thinking about today. And I know that the tendency holds true for other issues, but specifically for social issues, I think that a lot of people, whether they are deeply religious or very, not very religious at all and just kind of deistic more so, they tend to still have that influence from their religion and their religious morality and background and upbringing.
There's a lot that goes into this and a lot of questions that need to be posed before you can even come to this conclusion. First off, you really need to do a solid job defining what you mean by liberal, and for that matter, what you mean by conservative and libertarian as well. In my video on conservatism, I laid out several specific criteria that I was going to use, but one I realized that I forgot is the fact that conservative is a political label. It refers only to political ideas and not, as a lot of people might think, both conservative and liberal, political and religious ideas. Yes, I know there are plenty of self-identified conservatives on the religious right who don't seem to know the difference between religion and politics, some of which I went into in my video on labels. But it is important to recognize that just because you are religious, the religion doesn't automatically become the center of everything unless you've got some serious problems. I've run into a lot of liberal atheists who really don't seem to have a clue what conservatism is. They only identify as liberals because they know they don't want to be lumped in with the hot mess that occupies the far-right religious niche. That's really not taking your identity from what you believe. It's like saying, get me the hell away from these idiots. I agree with the sentiment, but we're trying to be honest and realistic here.
Sometimes that can be good, the golden rules in a lot of different religions and things like that can be good, but then there are also negative things, and I would view the people's approach on how drugs are viewed and gay marriage and abortion and those various things. And a lot of people that I know who are non-believers or atheists to some extent, there's obviously that scale that Richard Dawkins has that says how religious or non-religious. People that are more towards, the 5, 6s, and 7s, they tend to be more libertarian in their kind of views, let women do what they want with their body, drugs are fine, this or that, and they tend to just be more on the side of being liberal. And
I really don't know that any of that is true. Libertarianism is all over the place as well. There are some libertarians whose only ideal is drug legalization. There are some who are out-and-out anarchists. I've even run into some who are very religious and absolutely against all the things that Jim mentions. They are libertarians on the fiscal scale, not on the social one. So it's really hard to generalize about anyone. Studies that I've seen suggest that about 20% of self-identified atheists do consider themselves to be conservative, leaving about 80% of them being liberal. That's a big discrepancy, but I think that there are ways of looking at it that will make it all much more understandable, but that's something that we'll have to wait for a bit.
I think, at least in my personal opinion, that comes from not necessarily being non-religious or an atheist or whatever, but it comes from kind of rethinking how you view the world and society. Because I know that once I started to embrace atheism and the fact that most people aren't atheists, most people are still religious, and kind of embracing that new idea, I started to rethink a lot of things and kind of re-examine how I was brought up to think about certain things and the programs that I was a part of, like the DARE program saying that drugs are bad and this and that, and kind of re-examining how I used to think about things and kind of how I want to think about things based on evidence or anecdotal experiences or whatever. And I've noticed that that's changed the way I look at a lot of different things, whether it's drugs or abortion or gay marriage and all these various things. There are things that I never really thought about before, but I think that that's probably the biggest result of me, I guess, benefit of being an atheist or being non-religious is that I kind of have started to think more about those issues.
Now, I can't know about Jim's personal experiences, and I wouldn't want to challenge his own personal conclusions. I can only say that I've run into a fairly good number of liberal atheists who, upon rejecting religion, have also rejected a majority of ideas that they learned at the same time, simply because it's somehow tainted by the stink of religiosity. I suppose the assumption is that they learned religious teachings from a particular group of people, that anything else those people taught them, even if it wasn't religious, must also be wrong simply because the religion turned out to be wrong. However, as most people learn these concepts when they're young, they also learned about political, social, and philosophical ideas at the same time that they were being indoctrinated into religious beliefs. It's simply wrong to throw the baby out with the proverbial bathwater. Many that I have encountered took a quantum leap from one extreme to the other, rejecting all ideas taught by their core group of religious teachers, because it all has to be evil. That's not a particularly rational move.
I know some people who, say they're agnostic or atheist or whatever, and they don't even have really an opinion on those issues. So I don't think it's something that is necessarily a result for most people or for everyone, or I don't even know how many people exactly it affects. Obviously enough to make atheists in general more liberal, but there are obviously people who aren't affected at all by that, and they're just like, yeah, I don't believe in God, but I'm still, they don't have views on other things.
But there are plenty of liberal atheists who also have no real opinion on those issues either. They simply identify as liberal because they identify the religious right with conservatism, even though conservatism has nothing whatsoever to do with religion. There are plenty of atheists who, if you ask them to justify their supposed liberal views, would have very little to say on the subject, perhaps just parroting back the things that they've heard from others because that's what they think they're supposed to believe. In many ways, this is just religion repackaged. Here's your dogma, believe it and be prepared to repeat it because that's what atheists think. They can't explain why they hold those positions or what rationale they use to get to those positions. They can only tell you why they think they're supposed to hold those positions and the emotional impact those positions have on them and their position in the pecking order. That sounds painfully like religious adherence, doesn't it?
So I think it really does vary with a lot of people, but I'm kind of curious to what you all think about why atheists and non-believers of various sorts tend to be more liberal, specifically on social issues. Because I know that the tendency holds true on various things, but I'm more interested, right, at least in this video, is about the effect on social issues, whether it's gay marriage, abortion, drugs, kind of all the social issues that are current today. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe. Do all that fun junk. As always, thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.
I've waited until this late in the game to give my opinion because this is where he actually asks. I think that he and many other liberal atheists are making a potential logically fallacious claim here, that atheists are liberal because they're atheists. This confuses correlation with causation. A sizable percentage of atheists are also white males. That doesn't mean that being a white male makes you an atheist either. If you could separate out those who have rejected conservatism simply because in our modern world the highly religious and conservatism are closely, although incorrectly linked, what do you have left? Well, there are several other factors that we need to look at that really have little to do with atheism itself, but probably have a lot to do with this kind of view. First, we've got age. Atheists skew young. In a recent Pew survey, more than a third of Americans aged 18 to 30 identify with no religion, compared to only 23% of their parents. We also know that liberalism skews young as well, and that as people age, they tend to become more conservative. So maybe the indicator here is not atheism, but age. We can also look at education. 43% of self-identified atheists have advanced educational degrees or are going to school. Compare that to 29% of the general public. Liberalism is well established in most universities, and those that are in college or have graduated college do tend to vote for liberal candidates at a significantly higher rate than those that vote for conservative candidates. Therefore, I don't think that being an atheist makes you more likely to be liberal. I think that being young, being educated, and therefore being liberal makes you much more likely to be an atheist. As time goes on, though, as the atheists of today age and change their political views, we're going to see a subtle but real change in the political views of atheists overall. It isn't going to be an 80-20 split. It will come closer to 50-50 as everything starts to even out. And that, I think, is a good thing. Thanks for listening. I welcome comments, questions, and constructive criticisms in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe and spread the word. I'm really trying to get some valuable and worthwhile content out there, and that doesn't work if nobody knows I'm here. I'll be back in a bit with some more videos, so please stick around.